Welcome to OK Miniatures. Today we're going to upgrade this normal Settlers tile into this, a 3D version, bringing the game to a little bit more life. So I cut out a few more hexagons. Here's an example of a bad edge. You can see how much it's beveled. So if I took another piece of foam and tried to, sorry, bump the camera, tried to connect them, you see there's this big gap. So either I have to use it upside down or just do a better job cutting. Yeah, be careful if it's not beveled right, it might still not work. See, there's still a bit of a gap here. That might be the sides aren't quite cut right, or who knows what. But either way, you gotta be careful to do a nice job. Try to follow the template. But ideally, if you have a foam cutter or something like that that lets you cut more accurate hexagons, that would work significantly better, be significantly faster, and also give you better results. Also, just note on the knife, this one's junk. This thing snapped off already. I've only used it for 5 or 6 hexagons and it's already fallen apart. It's not very sharp, so I have to do more passes with it. So investing in a good knife is definitely important and one of my next steps, really. Next, we're going to cover these hexagons with some blackish, really gray Mod Podge. It's just Mod Podge mixed with some black paint, and that will help harden them so that they can stand up to more wear and tear during play. So these tiles are nice and dry now, but I'd like to add some hills for a pasture, just to add a little bit more interest to the piece. So to do that, I'm going to cut another piece of foam and melt it with a heat gun to give it a nice sloped edge. We'll see how that works. It might be a little tricky since I haven't done this before. Okay, so I just made my piece with a little bit of a beveled edge to begin with, so that if it doesn't shrink as much as I expect, it's good to go. And then I also moved it in a little bit so that it fits on the hexagon already, again, in case it doesn't shrink as much as I expect. Okay, other than blowing everything on my desk around, it doesn't really seem like it did too much. I don't know, maybe I not patient enough. I'm just going to go to this one and move to something not directly over my desk. So the heat gun did nothing. I don't know, must be just mine isn't hot enough, so I'm just gonna bevel these edges a bit more with a knife and make do with that. also going to cover this with my green Mod Podge. While this dries, I'm going to try and make lighter color flocking that matches this tile more. I don't really have anything like that right now, so I'm going to try mix something together. Okay, that's going to be my goal color. It's not the prettiest green, but I think it looks pretty good for a hill. So now that the Mod Podge mixture is dried and I pulled out the toothpicks, I did scratch up the surface when I pulled them out, just because, yeah, they were a little stiff to get out because of the glue in between these layers. So I would have, looking back, I would have trimmed them short enough where I could just shove them in and let them be flush, and then I can just leave them in the foam to provide extra support. But now I'm going to try match this color of the flocking and give this a base coat. So I took some flocking and I'm just going to I take some PVA glue and cover the base with it, and then I sprinkled flocking on it. And I'm not too concerned about the big chunks. They might not stay on very well, but they'll add a lot of shrubbery sort of texture to the base, which I think will look good. And then once that's done, I just tap off any extra loose flocking and we're good to go. So now that the flocking's dried on here, I'm going to put another layer of PVA glue over it so that these little bits that are kind of fragile are stuck down nicely. You can see though that the flocking kind of hides this transition between the hill and the flat original hex. Then once we're done with that, we want to make sure these edges stay nice and crisp. I did not do that before, and so now I got this little bit of bump and we have to cut that off. This is just so that the hexes can actually line up. I'm just going to let that dry. Yeah. The exact type of glue I don't think is too important as long as it's going to dry clear, but Elmer's glue or PVA glue works very well for this sort of thing. After a couple hours, this is mostly dry. You can still see the white here. It's not quite dry. It's pretty dry to the touch though. And since I'm impatient, I'm just going to move on to the next step now, which is going to add some little sheep. So I don't have real little sheep, so I'm just going to use little bits, white balls. These actually came from styrofoam. I ripped it up into little bits, so I'm just going to super glue these on. So I started to glue on some little styrofoam blobs for balls from the stuff that you can rip up, and I was using super glue, but the sheep are dissolving, so I guess I'm gonna go and just kind of cover it with some PVA glue instead. And hopefully that doesn't eat the sheep alive. I think the white PVA glue will make it harder to tell where, like, visually what looks good with how many sheep, because the glue is white, so they'll blend in a little bit more, but I'll just kind of make do and hope for the best. I think that looks pretty good. The white blobs look pretty big to you probably on the screen, but quite a bit of it's the glue pooling around the styrofoam. So I'm just going to let that dry, and then hopefully those are stuck securely on. If not, I'll have to do some more glue like I did with the PVA. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it like this. I don't want to overdo it with too many little sheep. I would prefer it if the styrofoam was a little bit smaller, just so that it seemed a little bit more like mini sheep you can pretend, but that's what I got, so I'm just gonna go with it, see how it turns out. Alright, now everything's looking nice and dry. The PVA glue did leave a little bit of a glossy look in some spots, which I wonder if it's because there might be some undry glue underneath there, but the outside's dry. I really like how this turned out. Again, as I said before, the styrofoam balls are a little bit big. I wish they were a little bit smaller, but I'm still happy with how it looks. It gives a nice little pasture sort of feel to it, a little sheep on it. Yeah, and definitely in a layout of a full board of these, I think it'll look really great. So I'm really happy with how this turned out. If you like this video, if it was helpful for you, this tutorial was helpful, please leave a like and comment. I really appreciate it. And also, if you'd like to see more videos like this about settlers or other terrain for games, wargaming, or perhaps more board games like Settlers, leave a comment down below saying that, and subscribe to see more videos from me. Thanks for stopping by, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the future.